قرآن واسق حياتي قرآن.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, today we'll be learning 10 lessons from Juz 14. Let's go to our first lesson.
قال ومن يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون.
The first lesson we learn from this Juz is always have hope in Allah's mercy. Misguided people are the ones who lose hope in Allah's mercy. On the other hand, a believer and a mu'min always has hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings, as His mercy is boundless. Despair and losing hope is one of the biggest shaitan's traps. Why? Because shaitan wants us to lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy so we can get away. And a person who loses hope in Allah's mercy gets away from the blessings and mercies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and walks on the footpath of shaitan. We can read more about despair and losing hope, which is in one of the greatest books written by Ayatollah the Saghaib Shirazi. The book's name is The Greater Sins, where he speaks about the consequences and about this topic in detail.
إن في ذلك لآيات للمتوسمين.
The second lesson we get from this Juz is learn lessons from incidents. Yes, a person should reflect on Quranic verses and learn lessons from it. A true believer is thoughtful and takes insight from various experiences, from the stories and examples mentioned in the Holy Quran and found throughout the history. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, "Ma akthar al-ibar wa aqall al-i'tibar." The gist of this hadith is that there are numerous things one can take lessons from, but there are very few people who will learn from it.
لا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم ولا تحزن عليهم واخفض جناحك للمؤمنين.
The third lesson we get from this Juz is avoiding an envious perspective on others' lives. That means a person shouldn't be jealous of sustenance given to others. A believer is aware that this world is a testing ground for all of us. So he never envies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sustenance like children, wealth, which is given to others, as each one will be tested in a different way. A mu'min is content and thankful to all the blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. And the mu'min will never do hasad on others' lives.
واعبد ربك حتى يأتيك اليقين.
The fourth lesson we learn from this Juz is consistency in worship until the end of life. This means perseverance in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala till the last breath. A believer should never feel that he has worshipped the Creator enough. Rather, he must be consistent in his worship till the last breath.
والله جعل لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا وجعل لكم من أزواجكم بنين وحفدة ورزقكم من الطيبات.
The fifth lesson we get from this Juz is importance of family bonding in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A true believer will understand the importance of family bond and he tries to protect it. Silatul Rahim is the bonding with blood relatives, which plays an important and significant role in the Islamic culture. But first of all, we should try to strengthen the bond in between the family, first of all with the parents, then with the siblings, and then with the blood relatives.
والله جعل لكم من بيوتكم سكنا وجعل لكم من جلود الأنعام بيوتا تستخفونها يوم ظعنكم ويوم إقامتكم ومن أصوافها وأوبارها وأشعارها أثاثا ومتاعا إلى حين.
The sixth lesson we learn from this juz is that believer's house should be a place of tranquility and peace. A believer strives to make his home atmosphere peaceful Few people find peace outside their houses and not at home, whereas the believers and mu'min find peace at his own house. Allah says in this verse that Allah has made your homes as a place of rest for you. Now it is our responsibility how we can make the house environment peaceful. We should try to implement the teachings of Quran and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and try to perform all the wajibat and refrain and abstain from muharramat, so we can have the good environment in our house which will have the positive effects on our children.
ما عندكم ينفد وما عند الله باق ولنجزين الذين صبروا أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون.
The seventh lesson we learn from this juz is life with iman and faith is permanent one. Believers always do things for Allah. Everything we have with us is mortal, and if done for the sake of Allah, then it's eternal. As the verse says, that which is with you will be spent and gone, but what is with Allah shall last. We know that Bibi Zahra Salamullah alayha gave her a new wedding dress to the needy. This act is called infaq.
إنما يفتري الكذب الذين لا يؤمنون بآيات الله وأولئك هم الكاذبون.
The eighth lesson we learn from this juz is to abstain from lies. A believer always tries to live this life with truthfulness and protects himself from lies. Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam says, جُعِلَتِ الْخَبَائِثُ فِي بَيْتٍ وَجُعِلَ مِفْتَاحُهُ الْكَذِبُ, which means all the sins and evil deeds are kept in a house whose key is telling lie. Therefore, we must be very careful to abstain and refrain from lying, and we should not let our children lie because that leads to many other sins.
ثم إن ربك للذين هاجروا من بعد ما فتنوا ثم جاهدوا وصبروا إن ربك من بعدها لغفور رحيم.
The ninth lesson we get from this juz is migrate to get closer to the Creator. For a believer, it is vital and important to be an obedient servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? To attain that level of closeness, he goes to the extent of migration if the atmosphere is not favorable. Sometimes we find that the environment is not good, is not favorable where we can practice Islam. In other sense, migration also means moving away from sins and evil. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Al-muhajiru man hajara al-khataya wal-dhunub," which means migrators are those who migrate from their sins and wrong deeds. Therefore, a believer must stay away from the bad environment and migrate if he cannot practice Islam in a correct manner.
ولا تقولوا لما تصف ألسنتكم الكذب هذا حلال وهذا حرام لتفتروا على الله الكذب إن الذين يفترون على الله الكذب لا يفلحون.
The last lesson we get from this juz is abstaining from innovation, bid'ah in faith. That means one should refrain from innovation, from bid'ah. A believer is mindful and keeps away from innovation in Allah's laws and the Sharia. Every innovation causes ignorance, and hell is the place of ignorant people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse, Allah is saying that do not say asserting falsely with your tongues. This is lawful and that is unlawful, attributing lies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is bid'ah? Bid'ah means to add something which is not a part of Islam. These were the 10 lessons. Inshallah, we'll come with the next 10 lessons of the next juz. Till then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
رحمن يا رحمن ساعدني املأ قلبي قرآن واسق حياتي قرآن. رحمن يا رحمن